As we achieved independence, the national government made an effort to provide labor a fair deal. And as a result of the efforts of the national government, what we did was we tried to restrict the hours of work. We introduced what is called as 48-hour week. We introduced Sunday as a holiday for labor. We also introduced minimum wages. Then the concept of minimum wages was replaced by the concept of fair wages. Scales of pay were fixed. We also tried to give leave, gratuity, provident fund, benefits to labor. An effort was made to provide housing to labor. In other words, labor began to be treated as a partner in production. The whole concept was that labor cannot be treated as a commodity to be used whenever needed and to be discarded whenever not needed. Labor had a distinct place in the organization of production. Similarly, labor was to be protected against arbitrary dismissals or punishment, and so came the Industrial Disputes Act, which provided labor an opportunity to plead the case and also imposed certain restrictions on the employer to terminate labor without sufficient and good cause. So, a relationship developed in which labor was given a dignified position. That was the effort of the national leaders. Even V.V. Giri, who was the President of India, was one of the most important trade unionists of the country, who helped in the process of getting a fair deal for labor in the post-independence period. However, over the period, what we found was that certain distortions developed, and it was felt that the Industrial Disputes Act gave a kind of excessive security to labor, and in many situations it was found that laborers do not contribute to the extent to which they can to the productive process, and productivity fell. This was more obvious in the public sector, where laborers began to think loss is that of the government, not ours. Let us move lazily, lackadaisically, and so labor earned a bad reputation and the enterprises entered into losses. Similarly, in the private sector also, excessive security granted to labor led to resistance on the part of the employers that this legislation is acting as a hindrance to foster productivity. And so the demands came that let us try to have a less restrictive or a more flexible system of labor relations. And flexibility here meant that the employer should have reasonable right to hire and fire labor. At that time, the word that was used was they should be free to rationalize labor. So there was talk about rationalization of labor that continued. Now, after the introduction of economic reforms in 1991, where emphasis shifted on privatization, marketization, and liberalization of the economy, the efficiency of every enterprise began to be judged in terms of productivity and also in terms of reduction of costs, because productivity could only rise if you are able to reduce costs, and then the margin between the market price and the cost becomes larger for the industrialist. In that situation, what we found was that there came demands that the employer should have the right to hire labor, and if labor is excessive, to dispense with labor. So they talked in terms of what is now called as labor flexibility. Labor flexibility means that the employers have the right to change the component of labor. In peak season, an employer may be needing 1,000 laborers. When the peak season is over, he may be needing 800 laborers for the normal production. So, he should be able to dispense with the services of 200 laborers in that situation. Now, this kind of labor flexibility is being asked today because the employers are feeling that we cannot compete with the rest of the world, we cannot compete in the market if we are not efficient, and efficiency is being judged in terms of a higher rate of return by the employers. So, this is the kind of situation in which we are finding today in the changed atmosphere. Now, there are two sides of the question. One is that the employers want freedom to change the component of labor, and as a result they would like to reduce the component of regular labor. In the change scenario, the government has now accepted in principle labor flexibility to be introduced in our legislation. This is bound to raise a conflict kind of a relationship and what we may describe as an adversary relationship. On the one side, the government thinks that we may have to amend the Industrial Disputes Act and therefore provide labor flexibility. On the other hand, labor leaders feel that it will be doing injustice to them. The question arises, what is the way out of the situation? We can have an adversary relationship, and this relationship is quite obvious in the present context. In a study of the West Bengal which I undertook, we found that the employers are taking advantage of the new scenario and undergoing for a large number of lockouts. After the lockout, the labor is forced to enter into contracts because the labor has a choice, either to get the lockout lifted and have a reduced workforce, or to continue the lockout and the firm may lead to closure and all laborers may lose their jobs. Therefore, what happens is that the laborers agree that we may have a reduced labor force. So, 30%, sometimes 25%, in extreme cases even 50% of labor has been converted into casual labor. Now, this kind of adversary relationship can subdue labor, but it cannot develop what may be described as a contented society. Conflict will continue, and in an atmosphere of conflict, we cannot have a better, more humane society. The question is, the management experts believe today that if you reduce labor and raise productivity, this is the denominator concept of raising productivity, or the accountant's concept of raising productivity. That is, given productivity, divide by the number of laborers. If the number of laborers is reduced, productivity rises. Now, this is not a healthy way of raising productivity. This can do one-time good, but ultimately a firm must grow. It must make its labor more skilled so that it can contribute to better production. Today, production processes are becoming more and more complex. Technology is becoming complex, and we need a larger component of skilled labor. That is why we talk in terms of knowledge-based industries are coming up, and we want skilled labor. So, it is also the duty of the employer not only to dispense labor, but to improve the skills of labor so that the laborers feel that they are a part of the productive process. Unless this type of a positive approach is taken, and labor is treated as a partner in production, we will not have a better and humane society developed in this country. Here I may try to point out that the Marxist concept, it has tried to bring about a conflict relationship, whereas Gandhi always emphasized a conciliatory relationship. Both labor and capital, they should develop a conciliation, and Gandhi's concept of trusteeship always impressed upon the capitalists. They are the trustees of labor, they are the trustees of the society, and they cannot ruthlessly suppress labor. Gandhi was appointed even as an arbitrator in a number of industrial disputes, and his awards were very much welcomed, and he was able to persuade both the employers and labor to come to a midway solution and try to understand the problems of each other and work a conciliatory approach. Unless we adopt a conciliatory approach, we will not develop a healthy society. So, let us not move the pendulum to the other extreme. That is, at one time, labor was having absolute security, and so inefficiencies crept in. And now we move to the other extreme, make labor as insecure as possible and exploit labor to the hilt. Neither this excessive exploitation by the capital is welcome, nor excessive exploitation by the labor of capital is welcome. So one will argue like this, that we have to make labor more responsive and capitalists more humane. Unless these two aspects are understood, we will not be having a better society. There are organizations in India, industrial organizations, where no strikes have taken place for the last 40 years. How have they managed it? Just because the industrialist developed a better outlook. He tried to pay fair wages to labor, gave them leave, gave them provident fund, built houses for them, built what may be called as quarters for them. And in that process, the laborers became part of the total system, and factories were developed as communities rather than only industrial establishments. Once we understand the factory as a community of labor and capital working for development, then we can develop a more harmonious, more humane, a better society where the interests of labor, capital and society, they can all be harmonized to move in a proper direction. This requires understanding of the problems of labor, development of better culture and ethics among all sections. In the new scenario, we have been overbending to welcome the MNCs. These multinational corporations are coming. They are buying over the small firms. They are trying to displace lot many Indian firms and then developing a nexus between big industrialists and the MNCs. This is evident from the mergers that are taking place. They are also trying to create a scenario in which labor is being downgraded. They are not observing any laws. People working in the MNCs go right at 8 a.m. and they come right at 8 p.m. This is a common feature. And since they are giving better pay to the senior persons, they don't protest against them. But if this trend becomes common, then it is going to affect laborers all over. Moreover, this is causing what is called as labor displacement or unemployment. In our country, during the last 8 years, the rate of growth of employment, which was 2.4% in the decade of 1980 to 1990, has come down to just 1% during the decade of 1991 to 2000. This is a very damaging scenario, and unless steps are taken to absorb more labor, to generate more employment, to forestall this trend, we will not have a better society in the country, because ultimately democracy will have to be judged in terms of providing a better level of living to all population and not to a select class or an elite group. It is in this sense that the change scenario of labor will have to be modified so that the goals of development, full employment, economic democracy, social justice, they get harmonized, rather than permitting the MNCs and big industries to exploit labor in the way they like. This is very essential. In our country, there is lot of talk about amending the labor legislation to provide for workers whose services will be dispensed with. The government is bringing schemes like VRS, Voluntary Retirement Benefit. Now this implies that for every year of service, some pay will be admissible to the person who is retrenched. This is only to soften the resistance that is there towards retrenchment and tell labor that certain people are willing to take VRS. Why do you stand in their way? But VRS is not a solution. George Stiglitz, Vice President of the World Bank, in his address to the International Industrial Relations Association, made a very telling remark, and that was, no safety net can replace full employment in a society. And it is this aspect which has to be understood. Since Stiglitz's ideas were not palatable to the World Bank, Stiglitz resigned his job in the World Bank. But he has left a very great message, and that is the reform process will have to be reformed, because ultimate goal of the society is to create conditions of full employment, provide dignity to labor if society wants to survive. Legislation has not been effective, and tomorrow we may go in for legislation to provide labor flexibility. That may become more repressive and again may lead to conflict. Therefore, it is very important to hear sane voices, to listen to them, voices like those of Stiglitz, voices like those of Gandhi, who have been emphasizing that treat labor not as an instrument of production, but as a partner of production. And that we can do not by dispensing labor, by dismissing labor, by cutting down labor, by downgrading labor, but giving it a more respectable place, also imposing more duties on labor. If you reward a person more, you can also get better duties from that section. It is this kind of a society which will develop a better society, harmonizing the goals of full employment, development, higher production, social justice. This is the kind of society that Nehru thought of, that Gandhi thought of. If we continue a conflict relationship, then it is going to cost the society heavily. This may be called as the social cost of restructuring. For instance, if the capitalists only try to subdue labor, they will be leading to resentment, which may go on getting accumulated and it may burst after some time, and that may cause more harm to the society. Instead, if you want to reduce the social cost of restructuring, that is, the painful aspects have to be minimized, then the best course would be that we may develop an approach of understanding, a conciliatory approach, rather than a suppressive approach, rather than a dominating approach, in which now in the changed scenario we smother the rights of labor. That would not pay to anybody. It can pay in the short run, but it cannot pay in the long run. And it was in this context that we found that Gandhi was a visionary and he could think better that the conflict approach, adversary approach, it would not lead to a stable society, it will lead to an unstable society where conflict will try to reduce production rather than raise production. The aim of our society should be to reach the goal of full employment. This can be achieved only by creating more jobs so that labor could find avenues for absorption. And the simple idea of labor flexibility, rationalization does not meet this end. For this purpose, we will have to enlarge opportunities so that, as Beveridge put it, there should be more jobs and let men wait to select jobs. So, we have to create more jobs and ultimately reach a situation in which any laborer, if he offers himself or herself for employment in the market, is able to find a job. This is the ultimate goal, and to achieve this goal, labor, capital and the state have to work in unison. Let me sum up the whole thing. As Dr. Prahlad, Harvard economist and management consultant, put it, downsizing can only make a firm thinner and leaner. It cannot make it healthier. If you want to make a firm healthier, the firm must grow. It must enlarge opportunities for labor. This is the message given by the management expert. Therefore, the whole question is to develop a cooperation between labor and capital. And the capitalist should not feel that if there is a profit sharing by labor, then labor is cutting into his share. Rather, it is the due that should go to labor. On the other hand, labor should not feel that if the capitalist is earning a profit, it is due because he is organizing the production and he is providing capital. The state can act as a mediator. All the three, if they work in creating what may be described as a more harmonious society, then we can go with the goal of growth and social justice. And all societies, if they want to become stable, they have to develop these goals simultaneously, that is, growth and social justice. Otherwise, democracy will have no meaning for the people. And if democracy has to have any meaning, then economic democracy will have to be built in our system.